what is the hope for artists?
Nobody's going to buy from you. You are the worst salesman I have ever seen. He said, you go sit down. I will sell for you.
We can't give this away for free.
I'll change it. Just pay me, please. Dark art world.
Shine your art, change the world. Welcome back to another episode of the Light Movement Podcast. This is the show where we discuss as artists how you can be successful as an artist without selling your soul to the dark art elitist system. And this is a very special episode of the Light Movement Podcast, not only because I'm joined by Elli Milan, the founder of Milan Art, inspiration behind this new artist movement that is dispelling the curse of the starving artist, but this is actually a very special episode of the Light Movement Podcast because we are actually highlighting so that you can come out of the spell of the curse of the starving artist and pursue your passion for art this year. So, Elli, first of all, thanks for being here. I guess I should introduce myself too. My name's Jake Dunn. I'm the marketing director of Milan Art and the host of the Light Movement Podcast. Elli, what is your experience with these gatekeepers? What qualifies you to even talk on the subject?
I have had some experience with the gatekeepers, and that is interesting because I feel like it's a fortress. There's an entire kingdom of sort of this old system, dark art world. And within that, big kingdom, there's fortresses and there's buildings and constructs and
different rungs.
Mm-hmm. And there's gates to each of them. And of course, the heights of it, the epicenter of it is going to have the largest gates. And I've only experienced sort of the outer rungs of that kingdom, and I've dibble-dabbled within small areas of sort of the outer edges of that art world. Years ago, selling art within it. But I have not experienced, I've only kind of peered in and seen bits and pieces of it and of course, read about it. And once you understand how it works, you see it happening all around you. You can even see it in Hollywood or, it's not just paintings. You know?
It's interconnected.
Yeah, so that's what I mean by it's a kingdom, and there's a part of it that's fine art, and there's another part that's music, and there's another part in it. But the whole thing is you're either in or you're out. And there are, gates, and you got to cross the gates, and you have to do what they want. And
so throughout your career, what are some specific intersections that you've had with this kingdom within the, art fiefdom? I
would say for me, and I think anybody who's gone to art school that's watching this is going to, maybe not everyone, but a lot of them, I think, are going to commiserate and understand and see, and they've touched it too. So I think it starts with academia. It starts in the art schools. And the more art schooly it is, the more high up in the rungs of art school, the more you're going to see it. If it's like a community college or it's, sort of a state-run, university or something, and they have a so-so art department, maybe you're not going to see it as much. But the higher you go, in art education, in that elitist system, you're going to see it. So, for example, I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, and then I transferred to University of Georgia. And University of Georgia actually has, a pretty good art school. It's well attended, and and is well funded. And so I saw a lot of elitism, a lot of gatekeeping in both places. And in Savannah, of course, this was when they were first getting started, 30 years ago. It could have changed. I don't know. But at the time, the professors would tell you all the time, you have to be this way or you have to be that way to make it. You have to make this kind of art. You have to make that kind of art. If it was, beautiful, they would call it precious, pretty pictures. And they would degrade you if you wanted. And then they would esteem anybody that was making art that was extremely intellectual, referenced Duchamp in any way, had embedded all of this concept, and aesthetic was very low on priority, and it took a lot of explaining to even begin to understand it. And I remember this one girl, she was a really good painter, and this was a painting class. Okay. It was an oil painting class, and all of us are doing our oil paintings. I can't remember who it was, but we did the critique, and they were, made fun of because it was a pretty picture. And I think it was like a landscape, and it was really well done, and it was beautiful, and it had a lot of voice to it and mood, and it was really, really nice. But it was a pretty picture, and it was just a landscape. And so they were sort of shunned. And then this girl came, and, she had done paintings before, but this was, maybe 3/4 of the way through the class, kind of at the end of the quarter. And so she gave up painting and was basically saying painting is, oil painting is, mundane and for the bourgeois. And then she made dolls, these black dolls, from some material. I can't even remember what it was, but the material that she used was like meaningful. Anyway, she made these weird dolls, and she made like 100 of them. And it had something to do with like the labor of these dolls and this material. I couldn't even follow it, but she had this like whole story. In my mind, it's like, it's not art. It's not sellable. It's not collectible. It's not displayable. It's nothing that, and it certainly didn't inspire, uplift, or beautify anything. And so the definition of art changed in art school, and what they taught us and what they told us art was something different than what I signed up for. And I guess I signed up for pretty pictures, and what I was told was art was those dolls. And they weren't even good looking, and they weren't well done. But she was rewarded because she put oil painting down as, some old thing that was dead and nobody's going to do it anymore. It didn't have value anymore. And it was an oil painting class. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff. And I remember at the time, my brother, his wife was a sculptor. She made these beautiful sculptures, dolphins and women, these beautiful, like generic beauty women. I was totally brainwashed by art school, and I would make fun of that art as like, sellout art, until I came around and I realized, and I thought, well, art school art is the art. And anybody who's gone to art school, you've either seen it and rejected it, or you've bought into it. And I temporarily did buy into it until I got out into the real world, and I took my decorative art job and I made pretty pictures for a living. And then I realized what's at the heart of art, and why do we make it, and who is it for, and what does it serve? And I realized that whole thing is, a house of cards. It's a mirage. It's not even real. That dark art construct, it just like gets everybody in this intellectual gymnastics, where you just like invent these meanings upon meanings upon meanings, and you're talking in nonsense that nobody can even comprehend anymore. And it's all referencing this historical thing. And it's just like this trail of intellectualism that doesn't ever get anywhere, So that was, I think, my first taste of it. And it was the same thing in University of Georgia, mostly with the professors. It's not like systemic in the curriculum. You learn oil painting, you learn drawing, but what they're actually teaching in there is something very different. And your advisors, my advisor was worthless. He kept advising me to do something else, or if I really wanted to be an artist, then just commit to a life of waitressing, and told me over and over again I couldn't make it. And so you're brainwashed into thinking that art for art's sake, you're going to just make this nonsense art that's all about art, and something kind of weird and depressing and difficult to understand. And the more difficult it is to understand, the more smart you are, just these riddles. I'm super thankful that I got that show at that restaurant at Last Resort Grill, and I showed my art, and it was seen, and I got out of that, and I got into that decorative art market, because it was the exact opposite. And it was what they were making fun of. You can hear my stories, or when I talk about this, and I say that, all my art school friends told me, we sold our soul to the couch art devil. It was constant. I mean, for at least 6 to 8 months, there was this, huge separation from our college, our university friendships because we stayed in Athens where we graduated from and our friends stayed. So imagine, if you stayed in LA, you would still be friends with them, but then you took a job that those friends didn't approve of. And so there was a 6-month separation where we were ridiculed and made fun of. We would go to the parties, we would go to the different things, and slowly, we were completely shunned. And because we had these jobs as artists, making a living selling our art, but because we were making pretty pictures, we weren't acceptable, It was very weird. Looking back, it's very weird.
And all those other people, what were they doing?
Well, they were making their weird art, doing drugs, and, going to concerts and living the college life, even though they had graduated or just stopped going. They would talk about their art, but do very little of it. Because they weren't giving assignments anymore. So they would just, get stoned and talk about it in their lofty philosophies, but they didn't actually really do it a lot.
This is a super fascinating trail. And specifically when you said that you discovered like the true heart of creating art was, I want to circle back to that later. But before we get to that, could you just shed light on some of the other gatekeepers or different entities that exist within that kingdom?
We got out, let's say, like, I feel like imagine this kingdom, in art school, we kind of butt up against it. And then we kind of left it and we were in this, sort of decorative art thing. Then we rose pretty high up in that decorative, probably to the top of where it goes, the decorative art. And then we were right back, at the edges of the art world again. And so I saw it. I think we were involved in it without knowing it while we were selling art, because we would sell our art to the dealers.
Yeah.
And we had just like our one contact with the dealer, and they were the one that was distributing it. And we were, the darlings of these dealers. I mean, we were one of the top art dealers in the decorative art market.
You were like chemists making, chemicals, and you didn't know that the people were using it to make drugs.
Yeah, something. I don't know. We just kept selling him, painting after painting after painting, and he had thousands of them. And we knew he was, pretty important and, a big dealer and, had a, multi-million dollar business, but we didn't really understand what was happening because we just painted in our studios and off it went. And we get our checks and we were happy. But then when the economy crashed in 2008, he wasn't able to buy art anymore. By that October, it started to fall off in May. And then by that October, it dwindled down to nothing. And he basically said, I can't buy art from you and I don't know when I will. And we said, well, we can't be, obviously exclusive anymore, right? We're going to go and make a living. And I said, the first thing we're going to do is try to sell art to the people who are buying it, which are the people he connected us with. And he's like, good luck. Do what you got to do. And we decided we were going to go to New York Art Expo. And that was at the time, now it's maybe less important, but at the time in the decorative art market and the more commercial art market and the market where the dealers build people. So I call it the decorative art market, and that was big there, but it's also like, I don't want to name names, but you can kind of figure it out looking in magazines or whatever. It's these artists that are sort of one-trick ponies that just make the same art over and over and over and over and over again. It's heavily commercialized, and they have a dealer, and they have like, the father of movement or something. They have some name they're known for, right? And so our Art Expo's full of those people. We decided, not knowing anything that was going on, we decided we're going to go to New York Art Expo and we're just going to sell our own artwork there as artists, And you had your choice of doing the solo, which is where all the artists went, or you could go as a dealer or a gallery. And dumb us, we thought that's what we wanted to do because we had the money for it. So we were going to pay for the more expensive space, have a really nice. We bought a double booth, and we're going to sell all this art at New York Art Expo because we were the top sellers for this dealer 3 years in a row. And so we thought it'll be a piece of cake. We'll sell so much art. We'll probably just sell all this art at Expo, and the rest of the year we can take off, and travel or something. I don't know. We had crazy ideas. So we get ready for that. And we naively, dumbly, we call the dealer that, we weren't working with anymore because of the economy. And we said, well, we've decided we're going to do Art Expo. This is spring of 2009. And we just wanted to let you know that we're going to be there. He could have said, don't do it. I'll eat you alive. Don't do it. Save yourself. Just don't go. Trust me. Mm-hmm. And then it's our prerogative if we defied him or not, right? Mm-hmm. But he didn't. He said, all right, well, good luck. That's it. That's all he said. And I thought, well, he's a nice guy. He's wishing us good luck. So we got everything ready, made a huge investment. We go to New York. We set up, make our booth. And the first day, while I'm setting up, all these galleries are coming in, all these dealers. And because the first few days it's open to insiders, mm-hmm. not outsiders. Yeah. And I didn't know this inside outside at the time. I'm just naive there. I don't know anything. And so these people are coming up and they're like, oh, I can't believe you're here. We've been selling your work for years. Oh, wow. It's so great to meet you. You're going to do so well. You're going to do amazing. Oh, this is great. Beautiful stuff. Okay. I'm coming back. And it was just one after the other. And I was adding it all up. I mean, we're talking like at least 30 different people from 30 different companies saying they're going to come back. Be ready. I'm going to buy a bunch. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I have enough inventory. This is incredible. The next day, the first day we're there, I'm waiting for the throngs of people to come and buy our work. And there's nobody coming, and then it's noon and then it's 1:00 and it's 2:00 and this is going to end at 5. And I'm like, where are all the people that said they were going to come? And I looked down the hall and this one lady that I really connected with on setup, and she said she was coming back buying all kinds of things. In fact, that's another gatekeeper, this lady. This person owns the largest art dealer in the UK. She's like a mega dealer, and then she distributes the art to all the gallery chains in the UK. So it is impossible to work with the gallery, a good gallery, a retail gallery that's actually selling art in the UK. I mean, this was at least true
25?
No, because I've worked with them recently, like I would say up to 10 years ago.
Oh, okay.
So if it's changed in the last 10 years, that's possible. But anyway, you can't go around these people. It is impossible. She was a gatekeeper and I didn't know it. And so, but we really hit it off and I really liked her and she liked me. And she said that she sold more of my art than any other person that our dealer had worked with. So it was a very exciting contact. And so I see her coming down the aisle and all of a sudden she looks and she's like, and then she spins on her heels and like starts walking away. So I chase her down and I'm like, hey, I'm like, level with me. What is going on? Because all these people came by yesterday and they were like, I'm coming back, whatever. And nobody has come anywhere near my booth. And I saw you're avoiding me. So what is going on? And she's like, I can't buy art from you. I can't talk to you. I can't buy art from you. And she leaves. And I'm like, okay, something is up. So I'm like, I'm going to go find our dealer and I'm going to have it out with him. Actually, you might be surprised, but I was way more volatile and reactive back then when I was younger. And I was shy, but if I got angry, that was it. I would just let you have it. And so I was going to let him have it. So I was walking to his big booth. I mean, he didn't even have a booth. He had an entire corner of the Javits Center. So I go to his area and he's got the gatekeepers out front of his gate. And they're like, I don't know, gargoyles.
Yeah, the gargoyles at the gate. Yeah.
And they're like snarling and ready. And they recognize me and they're like immediately come up and they're like, yes, what do you want? And I was like, I'm looking for
They'll just call him Bob.
I'm looking for Bob. And they're like, oh, well, he's not here, but I'll tell him you were looking for him. So I start to leave, and then I recognized a gallery that had come the day before from Minnesota, and really nice guy. And so I go up to him and I was like, hey, I said, has Bob talked to you about, not buying from me? Has he told you that you can't buy from me? He goes, yeah. He goes, look, nobody's going to buy from you. you've been completely blacklisted. He's gone around to every single person he's ever sold your artwork to and has threatened if they even talk to you that he'll never do business with them again.
Wow.
And so I was like, okay, I'm done. Like, I just spent my entire life savings to be here, took this huge risk, and I'm blacklisted. Like, nobody's going to buy anything. And they didn't. We didn't sell anything that day, the insider day, the insider 2 days. So it's the end of the insider day, and it's about to be, so there's 2 days where it's inside, and then it's 2 days where it's open to the public.
And you're hoping that you would sell all of your inventory.
I was just hoping
to the inside at first.
Oh yeah, that was why you go, because open to the public, it's you sell retail, and it's like it's hit or miss.
More random.
More random. So we were going to make connections, ongoing connections. It's the end of that first day, and I come back, or second day, I come back, and I'm telling the people that were there working with me, and I'm like, look what happened. Oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm going to do. And right then, Bob comes walking down, sees me, starts smirking, walks up to me, and he says, well, congratulations. I see you've made it here. Very good. Yeah, beautiful work. You guys have done well. Yeah. You have good amount of work here. He's like, I really hope you sold at least 70%. I really hope you did well today, because, the first 2 days are like it. That's where you make all your money. He's like, the public days, nobody buys anything. It's just all looky-loos. So I really hope you've done well. And I was like,
assholes.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, we've sold a lot. It's been great. And we hadn't sold one thing.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm sure. Yeah. And he knew. And he just turned and left. And I had a table with paper pieces on it and a black tablecloth. And I literally fell to the ground, went under the table, and just like had one of those silent cries where you just scream into your hands but make no sound. And I was just shaking with rage and just cried my guts out. And then, I don't know, when I finally pulled it together, it came out from the table, and I'm like, okay, and so then went back to the hotel and, got some pep talks, and we were like, okay, we're just going to do it. We're going to sell to the public. And that's kind of a whole nother story, but it has nothing to do with Gatekeepers. So,
well, I'm sure the people watching are curious. Like, is there a happy ending to the story?
Yeah, there is a happy ending. So, okay, well, that night I was pretty much thinking, I've got to make all this money back, because it was a fortune to at least at the time for me.
Like what are we talking about?
Well, okay, this is after several months of not making any money and preparing for this and building inventory. And so you not counting that investment, not counting the investment of the material and the time putting into it, and not making money those months, right? Just the cash investment for the booth alone, it was like $16,000.
Wow. And then that's not including airfare and hotel and transporting the art there.
Transporting the art there.
Back.
You had to pay, and you had to pay not the mafia, what do you call them? The
gatekeepers.
the other gatekeepers. There's the unions. We weren't allowed to bring in our own artwork. There was a very special way you had to follow all their rules to get the artwork there. And each step of the way, it cost you money. And so it was
they
rigged.
Hook you with the booth, and then they're like, and you're going to have to stay at this specific hotel. You're going to have to use these taxis. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, kind of.
You're going to have to buy this food. You're going to have to drink wear these clothes and buy our clothes.
The ham sandwiches at the Javis Javits Center were $27.
Whoa.
20 years ago or whenever it was. $27. Wow. I was
That's
like, insane. For a sandwich.
Yeah.
A ham sandwich.
Was it really good though?
No, it was terrible.
Man, that's just like robbery. Okay, but the happy ending.
Yeah, so the next day, it's going to get bad before it gets better. But to make things worse, this is March, but they were predicting the storm of the century for that Sunday. So this is Saturday, and the show's supposed to go on Sunday as well. And you only have from 10 to 5. So it's not like all day, all night, Sunday was supposed to be when the blizzard was hitting. And so nobody was expected Sunday. and they weren't even sure if they were going to be open. So everything had to happen Saturday. So here I am Saturday, and at first I'm all pumped up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. We're going to sell a bunch of art and at least make my money back. At least be able to, not have to go get a job or something. And so we're trying, people are coming in, they love the work, we're talking, they'd say they would come back, then they wouldn't come back. I just couldn't get a sale. And I had no experience selling art. I just realized, oh man, I blew it. I should have had a salesperson in here, and I don't know how to convert the sale. Now it's supposed to close at 5 and it's about 3:30 and I still haven't made a sale. I'm sinking and I'm crushed and I'm just dying and I'm in this kind of panic. I went for a walk and I was just praying and I was just desperate and literally begging God for a miracle. And I was just thinking, if I lose all this money, I can't recover from this. I'll have to get a job. John will have to get a job. What if we're not going to be artists anymore? What if this is it? And so I came back, and it was about, I don't know, 3:45, something like that. And I had about an hour left, to sell. Some people came in, and I thought I had, they were going to buy something, and got really close. They were thinking about it, and they left. And they walked out, and I was so frustrated. So meanwhile, my neighbor across the way, it was this gallery owner and he wasn't on the inside. He was an outsider like me. And he had watched everything that had gone down and what I had gone through. And he didn't like it. And he felt really bad for me. And his name was Haim, which means life. And a really sweet guy. And he owned a gallery in Haifa, and he was just there selling art, and he sold a ton of art. Finally, he came over to my booth after he saw that last group go. It was about 4:00, and he goes, "I can't take it anymore. I can't watch this. You are the worst salesman I have ever seen." He said, "You go sit down. I will sell for you." And so I was like, okay. And so I just got in my corner, and I see him, talking with people, and he comes over to me and he goes, he says quietly to me, "So this piece here, you're asking 5,000. Will you take 4,500? I'm like, yeah. And so he goes back to them, and I see him talking, and then he comes back to the girl helping me, gives a credit card, and he goes, "Okay, ring them up." And he looks at me and he goes, "You put bubble wrap." And I'm like, okay. So I started bubble wrapping. I was just concentrating on bubble wrapping. But then by the time I looked up from my bubble wrap of my one piece, there was 3 more big canvases lined up. He had sold, and I was bubble wrapping. And then he sold more. And then he set a set of 9 pieces. It was like a set. Anyway, for the next hour, he sold art nonstop.
Wow.
And I don't know how much pieces it was and how much I bubble wrapped. Some of it was paper, some of it was canvas. And, one girl was just running credit card, and I was bubble wrapping and packaging. And I was so full of every emotion you could imagine. And then in the end, that day, we calculated it out, and, we had broken even.
Wow.
We didn't make 1 penny, but we didn't lose 1 penny.
Wow.
And I went to the hotel after that. I mean, of course, I gave Haim the biggest hug you ever saw. And I could feel this rush of emotion, just like I was holding it in. Like when you see one of those movies that you want to burst, you just want to cry and cry and cry, but you can't, you're holding it in because you don't want to make a scene. It was like that. And I was holding it in. The whole bus ride to the hotel, I couldn't talk because if I talked because I had my mom and this other girl helping me, and if I talked, it would all flood. So I didn't say anything. I'm just sitting there, just trying to keep it all in. And as soon as I went in the hotel room, I just flung myself on the bed and I just bawled my eyes out. I was just so grateful. I had my life back. I had, I could be an artist, and I could survive it. And the next day the blizzard did come, but there was some faithful people that came through. It was very few people. And my mom actually sold 3 paintings to one guy. And those 3 paintings were our profit.
Wow.
So that was on Sunday. That was the only sales we made. I didn't make 1 sale. My mom sold those 3, and she was so proud of herself because she was listening to Haim the whole time. and how he was doing it. And she copied him and she did it. She sold 3 paintings and I think it came to like 9,000 or 6,000, 6 or 9,000. So our profit for that whole time was about $6,000 or $9,000, something like that. The moral of the story is God came through, and I saw the underbelly of the art world, and I saw how you had these kings and these rulers, and everybody fell in line with them. They did exactly what they were told, and they were minions. They didn't think for themselves. They wouldn't move outside of it. There was a lot of fear, a lot of money, people not wanting to lose out. Mm-hmm. You had to play the game and you had to do what they want. And then there's so much more, you have to paint certain subjects. You have to represent yourself in a certain way. If you get really far in, we saw this a bit with Dimitra, you have to brand yourself a certain way. You have to act a certain way, dress a certain way, be a certain way. And it all starts to you can't be a real person. You can't be yourself. Mm-hmm. And you're not free. After New York, I think of it as like, Egypt, and being enslaved, and coming out of it was like crossing the Red Sea. And, looking back, I could see them, coming after me, but it's like, I'm done. The sea closed up and I'm on the other side and I'm not going back. I stayed out of it ever since and worked with galleries that were just mom and pop solid galleries. We sort of touched the fringes again with Dimitra unknowingly. I didn't know it, but once we started to smell it and see what it was like, we didn't go there.
Oh man, I have so many questions. I've heard that story before, and I said this while we were on break, but that was definitely the most powerful version of the story that I've heard so far. Or explanation of the story. And, if you don't already despise the gatekeepers, then you probably do now. Or at least you have for those people who are watching, an understanding of the dark power that they hold within those communities at a certain threshold. And it's pretty evident that incredibly corrupt, and it's not good for such a few amount of people to hold so much power and influence over something as precious as art. And, because as we've discussed in many different podcasts, art has such a mandate to influence culture. And I'm just so glad that there is this opportunity for artists to make it outside of that system. So I'd love for you now to talk a little bit more about how did you make it as an artist outside of that system? You said that you worked with mom and pop gallery system or galleries, and and then Dimitra touched the fringes of that with the publisher. What is the hope for artists nowadays?
I think there's a lot of hope for artists, and how we've made it is working either directly with collectors or working directly with retailers or galleries that aren't involved in that system. And you can kind of see, basically, if we can get into one of those galleries, they're not one of those galleries that's in that system. Because that system will usually, like for example, with Dimitra, the gallery chain that she worked with, for an individual to just contact that gallery chain, they're not going to work with them. Mm-hmm. They're going to only really work with the agents and the publishers that handle the artist. And so the handlers. So if you contact a gallery straight up as an artist and they want to work with you, they're not one of those, they're not in that kingdom. If you are working with an agent, a publisher, a handler, you're in. That's the road in. I think you can work with a dealer in the decorative market like we did and just send in the artwork and your art will get all over the place. But you'll never really be able to work with those people because they will only work with the dealer. Mm. And so it's a good way to get your name out there. But then if you try to circumvent and just work within those markets ever, you can't. Mm. It's not possible. We were a really top seller with that gallery system dealer in the UK. It was like another 5 or 8 years. I can't remember exactly, maybe 5 years that we weren't able to work with them. But then they approached us. And they said, hey, we'd like to sell your work and da-da-da. And I was like, well, what about Bob? His name's not Bob, but yeah. What about Bob? And he's like, oh yeah, don't worry about Bob. So I think something happened in the relationship where they got some leverage and they weren't, it was fine. So we just didn't ask them. So we wanted, to work with them and to be, have our art in the galleries in the UK and all that. And I didn't quite think that they were. I always associated a guy like Bob as sort of the insider or the underbelly, of that system. But I thought like the galleries and stuff, they're like me. They're just, hoping to make some money and, make a living and utilizing the dealer. We sent them tons and tons of work and they were selling it until we started working with Dimitra's publisher. And then we had to hand over that dealer to that publisher. And it just so happened that Dimitra's publisher wanted to work with that dealer and they were using us to get in with that dealer. And as soon as, we were just naive and dumb about it. So as soon as we sort of said, oh, hey, we're working with this publisher now, and now you guys can work together, then they dropped us like a hop. They wanted nothing to do with us.
The publisher or the dealer?
No, the dealer in the UK.
So the dealer was trying to get in with the publisher.
No, the publisher was trying to get in with that dealer.
Oh, I gotcha. But then as soon as
the publisher said, if we're going to work with you, you can't work with them. We will work with them.
Oh, because the dealer didn't want to work with the publisher. They wanted to work with you guys directly?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then they just like, I don't know. They didn't really communicate and we didn't know and blah, blah, blah. And we weren't able to really communicate with them. They were communicating with the publisher. We weren't hearing the right story. It was a bit of a mess. But anyway, so like now they probably wouldn't want to ever deal with us. It burned a bridge.
It sounds like, just a common thread within this elitist system. There's just a massive amount of politics. Like, I feel like that's like, it just seems like there's so much political maneuvering that you have to do in order to fit within the system.
And they don't really tell you what the game is.
No, you just have to figure it out.
You find out what the game is when you blow it and when you step on the landmine, I don't know. It's just a completely different system. And now that, it's just so sweet and innocent and perfect to just like build your brand. It's all authentic. You make your art that you care about. You have your message, you have your story, you make what you want to make. It's inspiring, it's beautiful, it's uplifting. You put it out there. You make your content, you have your videos, you share your process, you tell your story, you do your podcast, you have your website, you do your thing. Your fans are attracted to your message and what you stand for and what you believe in and they rally with you and
your art, of course.
And your art.
Yeah.
And then they want to buy the prints and then they want, if you make a t-shirt, they'll want that. And it's just so innocent and beautiful. And your art really means something to them and they get the clear message and it's not being filtered through some dealer who's making something up and painting you as somebody you're not even that person and just to sell some story or some facade or something. I think that system is crumbling and they can't compete. They can't compete with the true authentic marketing story that artists are doing and with through social media and their own websites and all these tools we have to communicate, and they can't compete. And so a lot of dealers have gone out of business. A lot of galleries have gone out of business. I just read that gallery sales in 2022 fell by 3%. But conversely, online sales have risen 10.4% since 2019. So in the last 3 to 4 years, online sales have risen by more than 10%.
Yeah. And we're talking, billions. It's not like when a 10% increase is a factor of, multiple billions of dollars. And a 3% decrease is likewise, millions.
And that online figure is way off.
Yeah, exactly. Because how do they even track all of that?
How do they track all those Instagram sales?
Yeah.
Some people say that Instagram's the biggest art dealer on planet Earth right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I believe it.
Yeah. It sounds like anyone who's a gatekeeper basically is, so many different observations as a result of this. And I encourage those of you who are watching to share your insights as a result of this as well in the comments below, and if you're enjoying this, please like and subscribe so that we know if you're, this is something that resonates with you, so we know what type of content to make in the future for you. So, but one key takeaway I'm getting is that in the past, if you wanted to actually scale in our business, sounds like anyone could have made it in the past, or maybe not anyone, but you could make do. You could just get by as an artist in the past, working with working with galleries and selling directly, just through galleries in the gallery system. There was no real direct to collector model in the past that any artist could tap into. And from what I'm hearing you say, that is what this new opportunity is for artists, is the opportunity to connect directly with the collector through means of social media, Etsy, Shopify, through your own website. And
yes.
yeah.
And Jake, here's the thing. This is why I'm so excited about what we're doing in October about the Milan Art Experience and shifting the identity of the artist, because that's where it starts. It's all within your identity. When I was going through this and when I got sucked into Egypt, it was because I had that poverty mindset and that starving artist mindset where I was looking for somebody to take care of me. I was looking for Egypt to give me shade. I was looking for a quick catapult in. And so I was susceptible, and so I got sucked in because I didn't feel confident or able to, run my own business, represent myself, and do all the things. And it felt daunting to me. So I was just looking for a dealer to come along and be like, hey, yeah, we'll throw you 20% of the crumbs and, you just paint away in your studio and we'll take care of everything. And it's like, that sounded good to me. And, they treat you so bad. That's the thing I didn't talk about. John and I used to, equate it with like spousal abuse, because you would be mentally abused. They would really talk down to you, talk down about your work, accuse you of things, like even just to make you desperate, hold your checks. Like our dealer he had plenty of money. We would invoice, but we weren't in a position to say, hey, look, if you're not going to pay your invoices on time, we'll go find another dealer.
Yeah.
Because of my mindset. Mm-hmm. Now I would do that in a heartbeat. But at the time, it was like, oh, I hope he'll still work with me, Mm-hmm. And the more he abused us or tortured us or, withheld money or lie, or he would say things like, he'd be like, yeah, you guys have been at the top for a while, but I got some other artists that are looking pretty good and they might take your spot. And I don't know what you do. You got 4 kids. And like just instill this fear that, we had to perform. And, I got other artists that actually paint faster than you guys. And they're pretty good. Their skills might even be better, and just constantly making you feel insecure, making you feel like you're not enough, making you feel like one false move, you don't behave. If you just don't behave right, out you go. And then you don't eat and you need them. If you don't have them, you won't eat. And I mean, we were sucked into that trap for a long time. And that's why that time in New York was so life-changing for me. And I felt like I just got out of Egypt. I crossed the Red Sea and I was free. I was enslaved into that system and so beaten down by it. You wouldn't dare challenge. You wouldn't dare question, and it wasn't just Bob. It was, almost everybody I dealt with. He wasn't the only dealer I ever dealt with. They were all kind of like that. Once I understood what I had in my hands and what art actually was and what it does for people and what I could do with it, then I realized, wow, like I people to sell art, dealers, whatever, they're anybody can do that. But not anybody commits their life to a craft, overcomes all these obstacles, perseveres, makes something beautiful with their skills, with their imagination, puts that heart into it, where you authentically, you have this story and you have this vision and all of that comes together with the colors and the materials and your skills and everything. And you create a series of pieces and you put it out there and you document it and you put it on social media and you work at it and you work at it and you work at it. Not everybody does that. That's rare. And you need to be paid for what's rare. You need to, you have value for that, and so I think artists really have to understand who they are, what is their position. They're the visionaries, they're the leaders, and they should not be in this place like I was of groveling or feeling desperate or feeling like, I better be nice, that I don't want to get them mad. They might not pay me. I even see artists with commissions. You see these collectors sometimes, they're like, I don't know if I like that green, and you got these artists are like, I'll change it. Just pay me, please. It's like, we got to get out of that. We can't have that mindset and that identity, I mean, you want to make the customer happy, and within reason, you can tweak things. I'm not saying be difficult, but if somebody's sort of lording things over you or trying to control you in any way like that, you don't need that.
Yeah, it's such a good lesson about diversification and not just, like not letting any one entity, not just a person, but any entity hold that power over you, and even social media platforms too. I mean, that's why you want to make sure you build an email list as well, and have your own website where you have some sort of control or ownership over the traffic.
Etsy could change the rules at any point.
Exactly. Yeah. And even then, it's good to have the website building skills, because who knows, Shopify could like completely crash. I don't think it's likely, but they could go bankrupt one day. And then, if you had someone else build your Shopify website, then you got to pay someone else to build your website on Wix, or, build your website on some other platform. And, it's just, you don't want to have all of your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Now that's not saying you can't choose a platform and build a strategy based off of that platform or avenue,
but
right?
You want multiple streams of income.
Exactly.
You want multiple avenues to get your art out there. And that's just smart anyway. You're going to sell a lot more art doing that.
Yeah, there's different marketplaces to tap into. And, that's one of the things that's so powerful about the mastery program, is it teaches people how to tap into these different markets and the different mindsets to have when going into them, and how to utilize all the tools that are available, whether it's licensing or even galleries too. I mean, you've had so many bad experiences with galleries. Like,
I've had great experiences though too.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on working with galleries? Like, what is I mean, this might be, a different conversation, but like, what is something you look for in a gallery that you like to work with?
The tell all is if they would work with an artist individually. If they are willing to work one-on-one with an artist, they're not in that system. They might be jerks, they might not be fun to work with. They could be great. I've worked with galleries. Most of the galleries where it was one-on-one and we built relationships were very rewarding. We had great friendships. And they were kind, they were good. They weren't abusive. So I've had a lot of fantastic relationships with galleries. And what we teach in the mastery program is to contact, once you have all your ducks in a row and you're prepared. In fact, I'm writing right now a whole book on, the whole gallery process, but it's a numbers game. You just want to contact, once you're fully prepared and ready and presentable, then you want to submit to like 100 galleries, and you're probably looking at, at least 90 no's, but those 10 maybes will be at least 2 to 3 yeses that you actually want to work with. And then there you go. And by the time you've gone through that process and you've had all these conversations, I mean, it's like dating. You check each other out. They're vetting you, you're vetting them. And by the time you get to an agreement, like, okay, let's work together, you're already friends at that point.
Well, actually, by the time people listen to this, I feel like your book, it might not be released, but there's the opportunity, if you're watching and you are interested in learning about working with galleries. Elli is in that, sharing her process of writing this book through a series of newsletters. And if you're interested in kind of getting a behind the scenes scoop of this newsletter or of this book as it's being written, as it's being created. I mean, I've seen the first, 20 pages or so, and it's absolutely, when I read it, I was like, well, we can't give this away for free. But Elli insisted. So if you want a behind the scenes look into that process of what it takes to get into a gallery, what galleries you want to work with, the different mindsets that you need to have if you want to actually be successful, then click the link in the description to sign up for that newsletter. It's completely free. We'll just send you an email.
The new chapters or the new sections.
Yeah, exactly. So definitely will want to sign up. If you've watched this far, then you're probably the perfect person to read that. So you mentioned when you were coming out of that system of academia, and you realized what the definition of art is, or not necessarily the definition, but the true heart behind art is. So I'd love for you to just share what your thoughts are on that subject in comparison or maybe contrast to this dark art and the dark art system.
Everybody has their own definition for art.
Yeah.
And I think, probably most of them are valid. One definition that I like, I didn't come up with it. I just read it. And when I read it, I was like, that is it. Schumann, a composer, classical composer, but in the more modern times. I think he was a contemporary with Kandinsky. And he said to shine the light on the human heart is the profession of the artist. It doesn't necessarily explain all that art is, but it does explain. And there's other people that shine light on people's hearts, but every artist shines light on people's heart, with their art. And so I just love that. And that is not at all what was being told to us in art school. It was like twisted into this other thing, like the black dolls. When I went into the decorative market, and it was the exact opposite. And it was just a whole world of pretty pictures. And of course, at first, I was just like, whatever. I'm getting paid to make pretty pictures. It's like I'm coloring for a living, whatever. I'll make my real art on the side. And so, I did that for a while, and I was kind of split. And I would make pretty pictures all day, and then I'd make my real art. Pretty pictures, real art. And after a while, they just merged into the same thing. But while I was making those pretty pictures, and I saw there was an entire market set up for it, and people would come and literally purchase this art to beautify a room, creating this environment with the couch, with the chair, with the carpets, with the lighting, the art niches, all that to showcase the art. The art was like the statement in the room that elevated the room and told anybody that came into the room, like, this is a great place. There's fine art on the wall. There's original art on the wall. It's not a print from IKEA. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you know what I'm saying? It's like, this is an original painting on the wall. And I just thought, that's it. That's really what every artist wants. Artists don't want the black dolls. They don't want, this niche market of 5 people in earth that can comprehend what they're making. That's not what artists want. They want to be loved by all, right? They want their art to really be appreciated and loved and celebrated and on the walls. And anybody that comes over is like, oh, wow, what a beautiful painting. I love that, right? That touches me. That grips my heart. That can happen through pretty pictures. You're more likely to grip somebody's heart through beauty than you ever will through a black doll,
Yeah, 100%. They want to connect. Like, it's all about connection. And like you said, to shine light on the human heart, that is the essence of connection.
And here's the thing about beauty. You could show a 3-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 2-year-old. You could show them a ratty black doll, or you could show them, a beautiful bouquet of flowers or something that's beautiful, and they will know the difference.
Yeah.
Somehow we know what beauty is.
Same with sounds too.
Yeah.
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 Like,
that's true.
In kids with sounds, like I even had that experience with my younger brother. Like, I was playing around with music production and was going through all the different sounds. And he was like, oh, no. And then he would be like, oh, that's good. And he's like 3 or 4 years old. And,
yeah.
They
Dissonance
just know.
doesn't sound good.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about shining light on the human condition. Wait, what is the exact quote?
Human heart.
On the human art. So if you want to shine your art, change the world, then, like and subscribe to this channel. We will be posting a lot more videos like this. And we've actually created a ton more podcasts just like this for you to listen to that will hopefully inspire you. And if you felt the urge, like you just needed to paint, or you just want to get into this and be a part of this art community, this new movement, this new opportunity for artists to break out of the curse of starving artists and into the new creator economy of prosperity, then join Art Social. It's an amazing community of artists. That's the name of this, YouTube channel, but we actually have a whole social media platform for artists. It's called Art Social. You can just go to artsocial.com and join these amazing artists. And we host free workshops all the time. time. Elli teaches free workshops. My wife, Demetra, she teaches free workshops. And if you haven't already, then go hit that link in the description, join Elli's newsletter, and learn how you can get your art into those good galleries and not the bad ones. Thanks for watching this. I hope you enjoyed, and check out this next video.